Hey dear internet guy, girl or sexual helicopter who clicked this video. I'm an artist, or I consider myself an artist. Just as comedians call themselves comedians, I have an opinion to share on the multiverse of art. I think it's okay to trace with 3D models.
Someone who's moved in closer.
Somebody's taking a selfie with a
Yeah, or doing a Facebook Live or something. Who knows?
Student protesters, some anarchists, from what I can gather.
Oh, my hegemony! I'm so scared! Ah! From very ancient times, art was displayed to a number of living beings in any amount for any purpose, from cave paintings to show and discuss strategies on how to hunt wild animals in the tribes, to Roman paintings to represent scenes of the countryside during the Hellenistic period, until to we have today, that is almost everything, such as movies, comics, video games, and anime. Japan, please never change. With the concept of art rising in the world, technology has been increasing as well, and therefore several inventions and techniques were invented to help artists and also everyone outside of that discipline, by the way. Do you wanna build a house? You better need instruments of measure like rulers, calipers, spirit levels, in order to draw the blueprints correctly and then translate the project from paper to the real world. Oh, and you better get a CAD program if you wanna be even more precise in the architecture. Did you make a mistake while drawing digitally? Hit Ctrl and Z at a time and job done. Are you looking to create a character respecting human anatomy? You can buy figurines in the store near your home, or you can use a 3D model, pause it, screenshot it, and trace over it. Wait, tracing over 3D models? Tracing is cheating. Didn't you know that? How dare you do tracing in a similar method that Jan Vermeer, Canaletto, Guardi, and Paul Sandby in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries with the use of the camera obscura? You're a racist, you're a fascist, an Islamophobe, a homophobe, a colonialist, a machista, an oppressor if you do tracing. Okay, in case you didn't get the memo, I was being sarcastic. It's curious how everyone needs to do a disclaimer for literally everything. Hey, what I've said was sarcasm. Hey, what I've said was a joke. Hey, I made a fanfiction of a TV show I didn't create, but that TV show is not mine, because people will think I invented that TV show if I didn't do that disclaimer while knowing that I don't have enough budget to make a TV show like this. That's a story for another time. I'm digressing. So I know how many people lose their shit while discussing if tracing is okay or wrong. I can understand these debates exist for a reason, but when you try to use insults as counter-arguments, that's when people you address with will hold on their beliefs more. Just a bit of warning for ad extremists here. There are several videos related to this exact topic. On one hand, you have a group of people that say that tracing is okay because it's more precise, can help with hand-eye coordination, and in my case I do it because it saves time, amongst other reasons. On the other hand, you have another group of people stating that you can learn faster by freehand and saying that tracing is wrong because it's stealing. These videos already exist, and I don't think there's any point in stating what's been said. I don't think repeating one thing that another user said is gonna help much, so go check some of these videos out. Unfortunately, there are people who are mad, filled with hate and resentment. These people believe that if they don't like a specific method, it shouldn't be allowed to exist, for your own good, whether you want it or not. They create very small and laughable campaigns in the internet that think that they have the right to tell every artist what to draw and how to draw without providing legitimate arguments. It's an idea who will appeal to many people like Benito Mussolini or Joseph Stalin or Jacinda Ardern. Then I asked myself, wait a minute, what happens if I search for something like art tracing 3D models on YouTube, for example? Let's take a look. Well, I don't see any users providing commentary or debate. You can see users that made tutorials for many programs and everything. And looking further, there are the same videos that appear when looking for tracing is art okay or tracing art is wrong. I understand that there is the copyright argument of you can't trace other people's art. In fact, I completely agree with this statement. You can't trace, say, a drawing of a comic of Tintin, post it on DeviantArt and declare it yours. You can be in a lot of legal issues for simply doing this. You can, however, trace people's art as long as you do not post them online or anywhere else. While I was practicing drawing the anime style, I had to download and take screenshots of scenes of animes and internet pics I found in DuckDuckGo. I did my best to draw characters in these styles while I was marking observations for myself while not uploading them. It's a common use of practice, and people who provided me feedback made the same argument of practicing in private. I mainly use Garry's Mod to tracing, but I used to trace models people made in Steam Workshop, and after further consideration and discussion, I gave the link in the descriptions to these pics to credit them. By the way, I see it laughable that in montage videos or movies of Garry's Mod, there's no general need for putting credits of models in their descriptions of, say, Splinter Cell, Dead Racing or Assassin's Creed, while I'm demanded to post the credits of the models for its use of tracing. Just saying. Since then, I began using 3D models, not from other people's creations, but from models I created using a program called Fuse. Fuse is a character model creator that allows you to pick 3D templates for characters, and you can modify a good amount of aspects of these models, such as height, size, even breast size. There was an option to transfer these models into Garry's Mod models to make them compatible, but that's not an available option anymore. One could argue that using 3D models is still causing copyright issues, and it's wrong to make money off them. I can answer this. I'm mainly using 3D models I created by using Fuse, and I use Artpose Pro sometimes for the record. Guess what? There are already projects, but mainly games, using models created by Fuse, and they're doing okay. Have you visited Steam recently? Have you seen Sneak Thief, Tower Unite, Brain Breath 2, Demolish and Build 2018? I've been using Fuse enough time to recognize quickly the models, the clothes, even the hairstyles implemented on these models. Does that mean that no matter how much money that game makes, except the free-to-play Brain Breath 2, will that money go towards the Fuse developers? Because if we follow this logic, everyone who uses 3D programs should be paying the 3D devs. What happens next? Where does that line of logic end? Oh, you used Artpose Pro for tracing, pay me. Oh, you used 3ds Max for tracing, pay me. There are even programs like Artpose Pro and Clip Studio Paint that have the option to put a 3D model, so you are served thanks to this feature. And I don't understand what the complaints are about tracing under these standards. If tracing is wrong, why are these options available in the first place, let alone in a drawing program such as Clip Studio Paint? Does it mean that artists who use these programs to trace should be paying to developers of these programs? I don't know about you, but if there are people allowed to make games with fuse models, I should have the right to make art by tracing the fuse models. So there aren't people making this commentary thing about using 3D models to trace, giving me much more reason to make this video. People say they love diversity. Hopefully they'll stay consistent with intellectual diversity. As much as there are multiple reasons of creating art, there are also multiple reasons to trace using 3D models. Here's mine. Spoiler alert, it's a long story. I am one of these persons who can't draw properly by freehand from many years ago in high school, who used to trace to draw better or using techniques like the grid method until my teacher stated, "You, stop using these techniques, go freehand." And I listened to him and did what he said. But even drawing a simple apple, in terms of realism I'm speaking, without any hardcore aid made me nervous. Therefore, my hand was shaking around, worsening the drawing. You can imagine how my grades in artistic education went afterwards. So I went to him and had a conversation with him about my problem with me being nervous and my shaking hand. So he proposed some kind of white piece that would appeal both to me and him only a little. That is, okay, how about this? You can use techniques I taught in class, like the grid method, but you can't do tracing, or I'll know it. You can't do tracing, or I'll know it. He's an art teacher with many years of experience negotiating with a kid in high school who hasn't got any art experience other than drawing stick main characters. He clearly knew when someone was tracing, so I agreed with his terms. I did the homework he provided in class, improved my grades, and everything went just fine. Eventually, I simply forgot the idea of tracing. Do not forget this small detail because it's gonna be relevant in this video later. At the time, my passion was still making comics, and even I brought my notebooks chosen specifically for drawing comics with my traditional pencil and drew stuff. Lots of awful stuff, but they were stickmen looking in 2D without any kind of 3D perspective. I mean, they were shitty drawings, I know, and I admit this in retrospective. I just wasn't rational enough to declare these drawings as shitty when I was younger. Curiously, one day, while I was drawing, one of my friends showed me a drawing of a car on paper he made, colorized with many kinds of details, brights. It was one of the most impressive drawings I've seen, and I asked him, "Man, you're so cool, how can you draw this impressively?" And he just responded, "Oh, I made a photo of my car, printed it, and started to trace it with another paper." At the time, I was shocked to hear that he was tracing to achieve a goal, but not shocked enough to ask him why he was tracing. I guess I hadn't got enough skeptical points in my high school days to ask questions and conform with literally everything, like an NPC. Then my online presence started, but in a very sad and pathetic way. I was still drawing in 2D perspectives. I was still drawing stickmen, but badly, especially with human characters. And I had people addressing my art. I received comments such as, "You suck, die," but I also received legitimate criticism like, "You should do this, apply this and that, study this." The problem I had with this criticism is that I have too much ego, and I simply called this criticism as harassment. Also, I think I should mention that some of these comments were a response to me being a dick online. I had bad behavior online. I insulted almost everyone and I used paragraphs as arguments, which weren't really arguments. These were just stupid speeches I found in the internet and mixed them together while I was deleting and dismissing their comments and response. Even when I was making a visual novel, I automatically dismissed the criticism towards it as, hey, they're just haters. This went on for years and years, to the point where I had to make a decision. I said to myself something like, you know what, I think this is not worth it. I quit. And I disappeared. Apart from private messages to a few friend artists of mine, there were no notices, no notifications, no comments, no page deletions. I just stopped drawing and updating. I made a few drawings in a silly way, making a few avatars for my YouTube channel and writing fanfictions and stories. Well, drawing was just out of question for me. And that's it. I wasn't going to upload anything creative enough to be considered a drawing. Eventually, as Foxcare's drawings weren't updating anymore. A few years later, I came up with an idea of making webcomics. Again, so I decided to give webcomics another go by a new project that is called A Jurist Closet. That was a webcomic parody of animes related to initially Madoka Magica, but also more animes and shows related to the Yuri genre. As I was advancing on the webcomic, I saw forums with arguments in favor and against tracing art. Someone made the argument in favor of it that a program is a set of tools provided to you, and thanks to a program called Poser Pro, he claimed that he was able to make furry art and he was able to make profit by making commissions. And he was posting screenshots of his years of experience. He said that he was tracing the poses, and he drew the animal elements of the hue of the furry characters from references he found online. And there were people encouraged by that thread, and it became the most popular thread in the entire forum. Do you remember when I said back that I forgot the idea of tracing? Well, this forum quite helped and encouraged me. A few months later, when I wanted to go back to this, I found out that not only the thread was deleted, but the entire forum was as well. I don't know the exact reason on why it was deleted. Maybe they couldn't pay the server's cost, but something tells me that it was deleted because that thread in particular was actually giving power to people who were struggling to draw properly, and the administrators and mods, who apparently were artists too because they were promoting the DeviantArt and Pixiv websites in their signatures, became salty and jealous. So they deleted the entire forum out of existence. I don't know anything about an archived version of that forum or thread. My friends who saw my drastic evolution were impressed by it, and one of them was savvy on the subject of art, gave me a piece of advice. AF, some people don't like what you're doing, and they will try to stop you in the future. Things won't be easy. You need to be prepared when that happens. I used to think that everything was against me, and therefore I acquired the poor thinking of, oh, this is dangerous, this is gonna be difficult, I should give up. But the moment my friend warned me about that, this thinking process was gone. My hand, my choice. And I should have the right to put my art in any way I desire, and I'm not harming anyone else than privileged spoiled brats who don't watch nor read the content I provided for free since 2015. I'm not harming against some sort of copyright thing because I'm not copying from an existing artistic work. I'm taking my time posing the models, both are naked models I should add, their fingers, and then they trace everything and add the clothing, the hair, the background, simple or complex, these special effects while I'm drawing. Which person's work am I working under these circumstances? So, if you are encouraged to trace art by using 3D models, be my guest. Let me give you some advice, because I can't let you commit the same mistakes I made before. There are and will be people against tracing. It's part of life. People have the right of having the opinions of the subjects they think matter. You don't need to attack the opposite opinion. Just take into account the arguments you will be using to defend your position. And please, don't insult. Remember, agree to disagree. While dealing with comments, learn to distinguish what's legitimate criticism and what's not. Take the comments on a case-by-case basis. Pay attention to the writing and language, but specifically on how they approach to you. If there are a few crusaders beginning with something along the lines of "your art is absolute garbage," it's most likely to be a non-legitimate criticism. You don't need to respond to them unless you can find a discrepancy or a contradiction in these comments, or better yet, in your profile, in the same manner he was observing your profile page, I should add. However, you will find people who will do nothing but attack and attack and attack while dismissing your arguments. That's the time when you will need to make use of the block button. Don't be afraid of the block button. If it's there in the social media you're using, it's okay to block someone, especially if they are verbally hostile. When responding to comments and drawing, use your time wisely. This is an advice that is more related to my previous one, and I took so long learning this. So learn this advice as soon as possible. You may be an intellectual person who uses rational arguments with paragraphs, and you will encounter people who use paragraphs too to counter your arguments. It's okay to reply to comments, but here's a catch. If you face with long paragraphs responses all the time, you may be morally obligated to respond with long paragraphs as well. And believe it or not, but writing takes time. It's time that you should be using on drawing, not responding to critics who think they have the right of preventing you for drawing. It's a possibility that they just want attention they didn't have from their daddies or mummies, for example. Fair enough, but there are more possibilities, such as making you waste time of these people. These critics want you to waste an hour of your time answering arguments and questions so they can twist your words in forums so they obtain a casus belli with the mob rule as the moral compass against you and only you. Think about this. People don't have to support you monetarily, but they should let you make a living your way, and there are critics who criticize you from trying to make a living are self-entitled hypocrites because they expect everything they are giving for free. In short, there are people willing to write long paragraphs to make you waste time of them, so keep this in mind as well. Don't be afraid to fail. Everyone fails. There is a belief that successful artists, the ones in the top of their game, their talent was enough for them to reach at these points. It's a false belief that can let people give up on their dreams. Failing is better than doing nothing, I can promise you. Imagine you are a soccer player, rushing with the ball to the opposite team's goal, and you are faced with heavy defenses. You are alone, you have no one else to pass the ball, but you are near enough to consider that making a clear shot is possible. You are in the offensive line. Now, there is no guarantee that you'll always score a goal in that situation, but there is a guarantee that if you don't take the shot, you will never score. Take basic steps and try those steps. And if you fail, it doesn't matter because you're gonna learn in the process. Think about the life you have, the conditions you deal with, your hobbies, like a hand of cards in a game of poker or blackjack. You need to consider everything, and you may reach to a point where sacrificing some of your free time is going to be your best shot, whether you like it or not. It's more common to be an artist thanks to the internet and social media, so make use of them. Ask yourself questions, and I don't mean questions like what is the meaning of life or why heavy objects fall faster than lighter ones. It's the practice of asking questions to yourself and coming up or not with answers that will be useful for your artistic career in the future, in the process and in the present. If you don't know what I mean with that, allow me to give you a few hints by asking questions to yourself. What do you need to know, to do, to be, to have, that you don't know at this moment? What do you need to know that you don't know right now? What books do you need to read right now? What mentors do you need? What circles do you need to hang around? You don't need to answer this right away. Just think about these questions for a while. That way you'll be able to prioritize yourself between your free time and your school time or work time. Don't be completely 100% dependent of tracing. One of the common mistakes of tracing is that you take the screenshot you use as reference and follow it literally the entire time. I've realized this mistake by having someone pointing the strange shading difference of a character in one of my comics, in the exact same location in different panels. On one panel you have the lighting coming from above, but on the next panel you see the lighting comes from a different location. This doesn't apply to only to shading, but literally everything. Let me put it in this way. Say you have one character posing, and for one reason or another you can customize the 3D model, and you make the screenshot anyway. You can make the character sound thinner, fatter or more muscular in your own volition. The same applies with designing landscapes, backgrounds, weapons and items the characters hold, and at the same time you will be making better observations while doing so and therefore improving your art in the future. Behave yourself as if a camera documentary crew was following you all the time. A common opening for discussions and even fights in the internet is pointing out double standards and hypocrisy. By being honest with good manners and being continually consistent on your words and actions, people will find it hard to distrust you, because if you behave differently in two situations about a specific scenario, if you have double standards, if you say one thing is okay and the other thing is not coming up with excuse, and people point it out, that's on you, and fewer people will be willing to give you a hand. I think that's all the advice I can give to you. Good luck out there, and never be embarrassed over tracing. You deserve to make art if that's all you want. But it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be slow, but you can do it. You can make it. Oh, one last thing. To those people who think that tracing 3D models makes me feel superior over everyone. I never said I felt superior over everyone else who doesn't do tracing. Do they make excellent art without tracing? Good! More power to them. There are wonderful artists out there who got into the position without tracing. I think I'm just worried that there may be artists who are struggling with the simple concept of drawing, especially with 3D perspectives, you know, the isometric projection or the oblique projection to make a few examples. I think that these artists need to readjust to the times we're living in current year, as much as the discography companies were readjusting more to the digital markets instead of focusing on selling discs. It's like someone goes, I have a wedding car and I want to make a living as a taxi driver. Are you against my rights of making a living by driving? And I would say, okay, fair enough, but times have changed. Now there are modern cars with motors, gas and electricity with the music of Despacito. You have to readjust yourself. Leave the options open for everyone. The more options available, the better. Well, I suppose that's all gotta say. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Take care.